Live, interactive, and here to assist you if you need help. Dealing with addiction, mental health challenges, and more. This is Road to Recovery with your host, Yonah Budd, only on 640 Toronto.
And good evening and welcome to the show. Hope you had a lovely weekend so far. Weather is nice. I took my wife Pumpkin out for her birthday to a patio on Thursday night. First time in, well, forever, feels like. Since all this started, we had a great time. Service was amazing. I never thought I'd like to sit on the sidewalk by the street and call that a good seat. But, we learn to change as time goes on and we adapt, as they say. But we had a lovely evening, and I encourage everybody, if you're properly vaccinated and you do all the right things, get out there and have some fun, man. It's time to come out the other side of this. We're no longer going to be victims, and we're going to treat this pandemic, and we'll never use that word again, we're going to treat this horrible situation like a bully, right? So we're not going to be victims to the bully. We're going to stand up and defend ourselves, get out there, do all the right things, and get out and have some fun and giggle and laugh. Like, that's what's good for us, right? Speaking of giggling and laughing, this is a call-in segment. If you want to give us a call, 416-870-6400, or if you need to call toll-free, that's 888-225-TALK, which is 8255 if you're like me and you can't figure it out. Or you can get us, if you're getting out of the car now and you want to get in the house and you don't want to miss me, 640toronto.com, and you can dial in immediately. So we have a lot to do tonight. We got a couple of guests, all kinds of cool stuff. I have Sophia in the studio with us. I have our supervising production guy, Corey. He's overseeing everything as well. And we have Devin in the studio. He may not hear us, but he's trying it out tonight. Just so when you call, be nice to him. Say, hi, Devin. How you doing? Congratulations on the gig. Anyway, we want to hear from you. So listen, here's the question. Do you use edibles? Smoke weed? Like, you can call us and we're not going to tell anybody. It's legal. You're allowed to do that now, right? So we want to talk about edibles and all that kind of stuff, because that's what the first segment is about tonight. We're talking about whether, people are doing what they're doing responsibly. As a matter of fact, I got a phone call from a woman not long ago, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, and she wanted some help. She said that her husband is now trying to change their custody order of their 2 children under the ages of 12, and because one of the children, the 8-year-old, accidentally ate a 10-milligram gummy and ended up in sick kids for 2 days. Ex-husband, father of the kids, found out about it and made a big deal about it. So I figured that was something we should be talking about a little bit tonight. Children are at risk, according to CNN, children are at risk of accidental poisoning from edibles and other products made from marijuana. And there's a study analyzing calls to the poison control centers in the U.S. from January of 2017 through the end of 2019. And the calls were about poisoning result of the consumption of consuming products, such as weed concentrates, extracts, beverages, vape juice. Like, it comes in everything, right? Edibles more often in children under 10. The study found, compared to calls about dried or pre-rolled cannabis. So less kids are getting access to your father's weed in the old days, right? Just the dried stuff. It takes work, right? You can't just eat it. You could eat it and get sick. We'll get to that in a little bit. But you can't eat it like you could a gummy or drink an edible or eat a piece of chocolate. That stuff is much more impactful and is making people sick. The largest proportion of those called involved edibles, of 36.6% of the people in the study found. And it's a trend that a lot of pediatricians and emergency room doctors have seen over the years. More specifically in states, obviously, that have legalized marijuana. According to Brian Johnson, he's the executive committee member of the American Academy of Pediatrics, and he sits on their council for injury, violence, and poisoning prevention. He actually wasn't part of the study, but he did comment on the story. Children are especially vulnerable to poisoning by cannabis and edible products. Like, no kidding, right? It looks like they're vitamins, for Pete's sake. If you look at an edible, the edible gummies, the little gummy bears that, are filled with usually 10 milligrams of THC and CBD. I mean, they look like the products and the stuff that kids want to chew and eat. I mean, they're really attractive if the marketers are doing their job. Well, we know how all that works out. So the products look like cookies, brownies, gummies, candies, comes in soda form. So if you pour yourself a glass of THC infused beverage and leave it on the counter, there's a chance that Billy or Betty or one of the kids might take a sip because it looks good, probably smells good. And they're actually intentionally packaged, to resemble other products, according to this guy Johnson. He's also a professor of pediatrics at the University of Washington. Products made from weed often have higher levels of THC than the unprocessed cannabis plant. Yeah, 100%, much more intense. And the toxins in marijuana smoke may be harmful to health, people find, but despite their ordinary, so people don't smoke because they're concerned about the toxins. Want to hear from you. 416-870-6400, 888-225-TALK if you're calling toll free. Want to give Devin a shot to take some calls, and we want to hear from you about your experiences with edibles or smokables, any chance that maybe you've seen something happen to the kids around you, or a situation that almost happened and you covered yourself, or just an experience that you've had with edibles or THC since they become legal. I'm glad to talk to you about it. That's one of the things I can share with some degree of expertise. Despite their ordinary appearance, a single cannabis cookie or candy bar contains several times the recommended adult dose of THC. So anyone who eats one of these things, one of these products, especially a child, can experience overdose effects like intoxication, altered perception, anxiety, big time, panic, paranoia. Paranoia is a big thing we see in teenagers that are using edibles and they can't control it, or, bongs and they're smoking too much, or poppers, which is tobacco and nicotine together. We'll get to that another night. Dizziness, weakness, slurred speech, poor coordination, or even breathing and heart problems. So marijuana abuse by youth with mood disorders is linked to suicide attempts and self-harm, according to the same study. The study also found more calls to poison control centers about marijuana in states that have legalized weed. Well, that makes sense, right? If it's more available, more accessible, you're going to get more calls on this kind of stuff. Higher rates in legal states suggest that continued increases may be expected with adult cannabis use legalized in more states, wrote a team of the researchers. In addition, manufacturers may develop even more novel approaches. The study goes on to say, which will present, obviously, additional health risks. And using weed during pregnancy is linked to psychoactive-like behaviors in children. Pediatricians believe that if cannabis is legalized for recreational use, there should be a strong, very strong regulation requiring edible products to be sold in child-resistant packages, and all kinds of notifications about dangers to those who are pregnant, and so on and so forth. These should be reasonable. By the way, I think that the caution on packaged marijuana in whatever form should be a caution around, if you have issues with anxiety, depression, PTSD, and so on, that you should talk to your doctor before using these products. For some, it's great. Like THC CBD is the go-to for soldiers these days when they come back with PTSD, and the government actually pays for their weed. So we see a lot of patients using marijuana responsibly to help with their PTSD. But I believe that marijuana makes a great medical product if used properly under a doctor's care. Not so sure how it's playing out recreationally. I mean, people use it, okay, of course. But, the problem that we're having is that people don't know how to use it, and it's now available. So it's not like you're a street user and you're pretty much a bit of an expert on how to get your weed, use your weed, and all that stuff. In the States, recreational use of edible cannabis products became popular in the 60s. And today, many different types of edibles are available, legally and illegally, depending on where you go. So gummies, candies, chocolates, capsules, teas, and all the oils and edible cannabis products sold in both legal cannabis dispensaries throughout the illegal markets. Edible enthusiasts also make their own. So you can eat raw cannabis, the flower. It won't have the same effect as consuming a cannabis-based product, as it's got to go through a process. And that process requires heat, right? So eating raw cannabis won't, you have to expose both the THC and the CBD to heat in order to activate it. So eating raw cannabis won't result in the same effects until they've been properly heated and so on. Obviously, you roll it in a joint, smoke it, or in a pipe or whatever. Though you can't get high from eating raw cannabis, some people believe it offers other health benefits. So cannabis can be consumed in various forms throughout history. We've seen it for medical and recreational purposes. But you can't really, if you can eat raw cannabis, it won't have the same effect. So people are going to edibles. And the edible products that we're seeing today are of a very high quality. So I've got, right now, hundreds of patients using CBD and THC, mostly CBD, heroin users that are now recreational, or not recreational, medical users of marijuana in various forms. They do very well. Same with people with alcohol disorder, PTSD, and so on. Helps with sleep and all kinds of stuff. So there's some really cool parts of the plant, the CBD part, which works really well. But there's ways to buy. You need to buy your edibles in an intelligent way, and you need to use them in an intelligent way. So, for example, unlike smoking it, right? It has a long-lasting effect when you eat it. And once you've chewed it up and swallowed it, it's very difficult to get it back out of your system. You need to drink tons and tons of water and try to pee it out or get it out or, eat some food and soak it up. But, you may find that what you need to do is spend some time figuring out, exactly, how much to use a little bit at a time, follow the packaging, use what they tell you. That's really the way to go here. So if you're interested in finding out more about it, there's lots of information on how to properly consume marijuana. And if, by the way, God forbid, someone in your family has a problem, you call 911 immediately. And by the way, when you call 911, don't you sort of ask yourself how these guys do it? It's such a difficult job, and how they dealing with the pandemic and the stress around it and all that stuff. Oh my gosh, people ask me that stuff all the time. Of course, I tell them I have a great family, lots of family support. I'm involved in a lot of self-care, and I see a therapist. But if you're wondering who helps the people out there helping you, when we come back from break, we're going to talk to someone who set up a program that's there for first responders in ex-copper, and he figured he needed to do more once he retired, and he created an amazing organization called Boots on the Ground. As soon as we come back from break, we're going to talk to him, find out how they're all coping and what they're doing to help one another. See you in just a minute. This is Yonah Budd, 640 Toronto.